Today on AI search, specifically targeting community association management companies. We will get started here in just a moment. I wanted to thank everyone for signing up and for joining. We'll just give everyone a minute or so to join the room, and then we'll get started. All right, looks like we have several people in the room, and we are ready to go. So we'll get started. First, I'd like to do some housekeeping. So Brianna from my team is on the call, and she will be managing the chat. So if at any point you have any questions that you'd like answered, we will do that at the end, and Brianna will take the questions, and then we'll ask them at the end of our call. If you're having any technical difficulties, you can also put that in the chat, and we will try to help as we go. So I'm John Leutermann, president of Big Rock Marketing. I have over 15 years of digital marketing experience, and I specifically work with community association management companies with my agency, Big Rock Marketing. And we will be talking today about AI search. So kind of defining what that is, why it's important, what your prospective customers, what board members would see when they're doing searches for a management company in your area. And then some tips and tricks for how you can get your business to show up in AI search. And then at the end, we will do some questions and answers. So I'm sure if you've sat on other webinars or gone to any industry conferences, you're getting hit with a slew of AI terms, artificial intelligence, large language models, LLM, machine learning, all these different terms. And most people probably have no idea what they mean. They know that it's important, that they should pay attention to it, and they should know what the terms are. But so really the goal of this webinar is to take a narrow focus and to look at AI from a search perspective. And so in the community association management industry, there's sort of two sides to the AI world. The one side is how you can use AI within your business to optimize efficiency, to get better results from your existing software, those types of things. There's AI chatbots, there's tools within your management software, though that has AI powered abilities with it. That's not what we're talking about today. So today we're talking about when people do a search. Traditionally, they have used Google to search for a management company, and they might use terms such as HOA management company near me, condo management, community association management, and then their city name, and results would come up. Well, that is changing right in front of us. And so we're talking about how to show up in those kinds of search when people are using those tools that now have AI built into them. And so we're going to go through that and completely explain who the players are, how do we show up in it, and really give a thorough explanation of AI search. So what is AI search? So there are so many tools being developed and billions of dollars being invested into this technology. I'm going to break it down and stick to the mainstream tools, the ones that may be household names for you. Some of you may have not heard of before, but I'm defining AI search as a tool that uses artificial intelligence to provide answers to a search. So where somebody would go search for a business online, now that search is powered either in part or fully by AI. And so we'll talk in a moment, but a lot of that is still happening through Google with some AI involved. And now it is spreading to other AI tools as well. So some of the examples, some of the more common AI tools include AI overviews, which is available in traditional Google search. AI mode, which was just rolled out a few months ago on google.com. Bing Copilot, if you use Microsoft, you're probably familiar with this one. Perplexity, ChatGPT, Apple Intelligence, and Claude. So those are examples of, so when we talk about AI search, It's someone going to one of those tools or some of the others that we haven't mentioned to do a search for a business, a product, or a service. And so during this presentation, I'll probably reference ChatGPT quite a bit. And the reason is that they are pretty dominant when it comes to market share. So this is kind of a small graph here, but um, they have about 60% market share when you sort of exclude like the traditional Google search and you're looking at the AI search tools. They have 60% market share right now. So they are the biggest player when it comes to AI search tools. And all the other companies have a smaller portion, quite a bit smaller. And so where do searches happen today? So this is shifting, and it's important to be aware of this. And congratulations to all of you for signing up for this and for attending the webinar. It puts you ahead of probably 95% of your competitors. Many people haven't started to pay attention to this yet, but they certainly will as things continue to shift in the coming weeks, months, and years. So right now, 95% of search is still happening through traditional search engines. And I will reference Google quite a bit because they still have 90+% market share in the traditional search engine world. And so of that 95% that's happening in the traditional search, Google AI search is included in that number. And so we don't have the breakout distinguished yet of what percentage of Google searches are happening within their AI tools versus their more traditional tools. And in part because that's pretty much blended together now, and it will continue to shift. Right now, only 5%. So on the previous screen that showed the different market share for the different tools, only 5% of search is happening on those tools right now. And so that number has quadrupled since January of last year. So it is growing. And at this point, Google still gets 300 times more searches than ChatGPT, just to kind of put things in perspective. And so you might be wondering, like, well, John, why are we having a webinar on this then if this isn't here yet? And I'll kind of demonstrate in this next slide here. It's that in part because Google, although they were considered more of a traditional search engine, they've outright said that they are going to be shifting to more AI style searches, and I'll show you some examples of that shortly. But so even though they may have a huge market share at this point, they are starting to show search results with AI. And you're probably familiar with AI overviews, where when you're doing a search, they just give you like a paragraph answer up top. That's AI overviews. And then AI mode is a separate link. And so they're trying to up their game on the AI search so that people don't go to tools like ChatGPT and other tools, so that they're able to have those same kinds of experiences within the Google platform that they've been using for years. And so they are, so even though the numbers look skewed towards Google still, a good portion of Google searches right now are that AI search. And so everything we're talking about today is best practices for both the Google AI search and the non-Google type ChatGPT type searches as well. So and so why is this important right now? So you definitely want to stay ahead of the curve. Most competitors aren't focused yet on this and haven't been paying attention to it. Definitely, this is a great opportunity, especially if you're one of the smaller players in your market, to pick up some visibility from some of the larger companies, or in some cases, even some of the national companies. Also, between January and June just of this year, ChatGPT prompt volume rose 70%. So 70% in 6 months. So although the comparison between ChatGPT and Google, there may be an extreme difference right now, that number is shifting. And so there's 29 million prompts, at least in June of 2025, happening per month in the US. And in a survey, nearly 41% of consumers said that they trust the GPT-style AI search results more than paid search ads. And so I think that stat is a cue that we're probably going to start seeing ads in ChatGPT and other AI-style searches in the very near future. So AI-powered search advertising, which is a direct monetization signal of consumer adoption, is expected to soar to $1 billion this year and nearly 26 billion by 2029. So what that's saying is that if brands and companies are willing to spend money on advertising, that means that they know that consumers are following and the consumers are interested in the technology. Um, and they're saying that Morningstar says that AI usage in search could reach 14% market share by 2028, and is expected to have a 35% annual growth. So that's going to continue to grow over time. And so when board members are searching for a management company, I took a number of screenshots here, and I want to show you the different results that a board member might see when searching for a management company. And if we had done the same presentation just a few years ago and taken these screenshots, you would see very similar results. You would see, the 10 blue links on Google, maybe some maps results, but there really wouldn't be too much of a difference. But today, there are all different kinds of things that people are seeing. So I would encourage you to do the searches and just see, like for your area to see if you're coming up and to see like what are people actually seeing when they do these searches, so that you have a sense of what's out there and that you're able to have control of that to some degree, by what you do on your website and off of your website to promote your business. So this right here is the AI overview. This look rolled out about a year ago with Google, and it's become more and more popular. It shows in a pretty high percentage of their searches right now. So it basically, what this has done is kind of rocked the digital marketing world, because what we're seeing is a rather large decrease in website traffic for businesses. Many businesses are seeing a 25% decline in their traffic to their website, which sounds bad in theory, but what we've also found is that the quality of the traffic is good, is it's better than it was, and so the total number of leads and closed contracts is the same or higher in some instances, even though the traffic is lower. So Google is providing the answer to to the question or to the query that you insert into Google. They're giving you the information without having to visit a website. Now the good thing is Google doesn't provide management services, so that they aren't selling that to your potential customer. They're just making it easier for them. So in this particular search, I just did the term Milwaukee Community Association Management. I live in the Milwaukee area, so I use that as an example, and it gave us a bunch of different companies that they're suggesting. Many times, the queries that are done in Google are questions, and so oftentimes what used to happen is if somebody would ask a question about a very specific law or board rule, they would get the answer. They would have to go to a website, to see like a blog post that would provide them the answer to that question. Well, now that answer is just provided up here, and so you don't have to visit a website anymore to get the answer to your question, and that's why the search traffic is down so low. But this is just an example of what people will see when they do some searches, and this is called AI overviews up here. This next one, if you are a ChatGPT user, will look familiar. This isn't actually ChatGPT. This is Google's AI mode, and it rolled out about 3 months ago, and was created to be in direct competition with ChatGPT. So it's a cheap GPT style search screen. So when somebody does a search on Google, up at the top there is a option to go into AI mode, so that you are able to have the conversation in this GPT style, and then you're able to ask follow-up questions and have a very similar experience as though you were in ChatGPT. So Google now has that as well. This next example is what someone would see if they went to Claude. That is another AI search tool. And you can see there's some overlap in the companies that have been returned in these results, but some of them are completely unique to each other. Here is Perplexity. This is their style, and you can see that the GPT style is very similar from tool to tool, but this is Perplexity's version. And I would encourage you to check your company and all the different tools. And then this is ChatGPT, the one that most people are familiar with. This is how ChatGPT looks right here. So how do AI search tools come up with results? So I think it's important to understand the difference between the traditional Google search that we're all used to and these new AI search tools. So traditional Google search was that Google would go out and crawl everyone's website, and then when somebody asked a question or searched for a product or service, they would internally decide through their algorithm which companies deserve to be on that list, and they would produce a list of those results. And so now with these AI, ChatGPT and the other AI tools, they're considered to be generative. So they have their database of information, and they also will crawl live sites as well in real time. But they are they're generating an answer based on that, and it's based on the same websites that would show up in Google, but they are actually creating the answer from their database, where Google was just basically listing the results that already exist, that companies will create a website and they just list them out. Well, now these other tools are generating an answer, so they're creating it from scratch essentially, but getting it from the information that they found when they crawled the individual websites. And so I think that's the big differentiator between like traditional search and the AI search. AI search is generative. It's creating a result on the fly. And so how are they coming up with it? They're understanding the question that's being asked. And so it's not just keyword based like traditional search. They're pulling the information from their training data and live web sources, and then they're ranking and filtering the most relevant, reliable, and recent information. And then they generate that answer in like just normal language. And they'll oftentimes list what sources, like how they got the information. And then they also will, depending on the tool, will personalize it considering where you're physically located, the context of your question, and then your past interactions as well. So it has many of the tools, and ChatGPT specifically, being the most popular, it has a memory. And so if you continue a conversation in a new chat later on, it knows what you previously asked and will try to come up with answers that sort of fit the information that you've provided them in the past. Now, there is a way to clear the memory if you're trying to do just search for research purposes. But in general, they have a history of your conversations, so they will remember what types of things you've asked them in the past. And so what are some of the search signals that will help you show up higher? So your Google business profile is huge. And Google is still the most dominant player when it comes to all searches being done right now. So your Google business profile is huge, specifically your categories, services, your products, and then questions and answers. We won't dive in deep into Google business profile today, but that is one area that you definitely want to invest a lot of time and energy into to make sure that you have that as optimized as possible. As Google is using that, as well as ChatGPT now shows some Google Maps results. Your website, I feel like that's always going to be important. Specifically, service pages, making sure that you're covering all of your services in full. City pages, which are sometimes referred to as location pages. Also, any sort of resource pages you might have on your website. Third-party review sites. So like Google again, having reviews on Google, Yelp, Better Business Bureau, Facebook, any of the CAI directories, anything like that. Having citations, which are basically like online profiles for your business, both industry and local. And then showing proof of the work that you do through case studies, KPIs, any sort of testimonials that you may have on your website. And then also having guides and templates on your website is also beneficial as well. So Sources are really big. Right now, as someone who pays very close attention to this, quite honestly, the algorithms that are being used within ChatGPT and other search tools are probably in line with where Google was about 5 years ago. So Google's algorithms are much more advanced and more complex. Right now, the big thing with ChatGPT and other similar search tools is that they are looking at both your website but also third-party sources to see how they should come up with their results and how they should generate their results. And so I will show you a way to figure out what these sources are so that you can attempt to get listed on these sources. But I'll just give you a few that I know of in having done many searches. So your website is a huge one. Reddit is huge. They get a lot of their information from Reddit. Yelp, so making sure that you have a profile on there. In the Better Business Bureau, making sure that you have a profile on there and it's been optimized and that you are occasionally getting reviews from your customers on there. And then even sites like job posting sites like Indeed. And then I listed a few HOA management specific sources that could be good to try to get listed on if you can. But I'm going to share my screen now and just show a prompt that I did prior to this webinar to help figure out, what sites should I try to get listed on. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so the search that I did was, who is the best HOA management company in Milwaukee? And so I started with this search, and it gave me a few companies locally. And so as you're searching through here, you can kind of like hover and click on these, and they'll show you like who the sources are. So that's one way. But then I also followed up with, give me your sources for this information. And it gave me a little bit of information. It listed like Yelp and then it listed general directory, but also Yelp again. iProperty Management, which is a third-party software that they have some articles about like the best management companies in each particular city. But I didn't necessarily find this result particularly helpful. So I went even further and I said, what other sources should I be listed on to help show up in this search? And it actually gave me a really nice answer based on that. So it told me Google Business Profile, Yelp, Bing Places, which is a good one, which is Bing. Bing Places is Bing's version of Google Business Profile. And the reason why Bing Places is important now, where I started optimizing my clients' Bing Places accounts, where in the past maybe I hadn't paid much attention to it, is because ChatGPT is getting a lot of their data from Bing now. So Bing Places has become more important. Apple Maps, which is Apple Business Connect, Nextdoor Business Pages. They also listed out some other, the CAI and then some Institute for Real Estate Management, All Property Management, HOA-USA.com, and then Better Business Bureau, Chamber, Angie, Thumbtack, Alignable. So those are all ones to take a look. So they're basically telling us, like, if you get listed on these sites, like, it's going to help you show up in these particular searches. And so this is definitely a good exercise to do. All right. So what can you do as a CAM company now to help show up in these AI searches? So number one, what we were just talking about is to get listed in some of those industry directories. CAI, if you're in California, the CACM, Innovia, which is a co-op for independently owned management companies. It's a great organization. They would list you on their website, and then there's some specific HOA directories. Anytime you can earn links from different local news channels, Chamber of Commerce, any sort of partners or vendors. If you have preferred vendors that you use in your communities, and if they're willing to link to you, that is always helpful. Publishing thought leadership, so like guides or frequently asked questions, case studies on your website. That's all huge. Um, and then having, optimizing your site for conversational queries, like FAQs are huge. Just, on each page of your website, you could have up to, you can have as many FAQs as you want, but 10 is usually a good number. And the reason for that is that the majority of people are asking questions in these search tools. And so if you happen to have the answers to the questions, you're more likely to show up. And then there's just some technical things like structured headings and schema markup so that AI can easily parse your website. So strengthen your local SEO, which is keeping your business profile complete and active. And so, a lot of companies that I've spoken to, they've sort of created their Google business profile and then haven't touched it in years. So adding a photo or two each month, making sure you're getting reviews, adding questions and answers, all those things keep your profile active. Making sure that your name, address, and phone number is consistent across your online profiles, making sure to publish locally focused content. So that is much more likely to show up in local results. Demonstrating trust and credibility. So collecting and responding to reviews, highlighting any certifications, experience, any memberships that you're a part of, and then testimonials and case studies on your website are huge. And just adapting to the AI search ecosystem and monitoring how your company shows up in AI tools, like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google AI overviews. Unfortunately, there isn't great software available yet to reliably track your business. I've tested a number of different tools, and some of them are okay, but I haven't found one that's great yet. So this is a little bit of a challenge. So I would say for now, if you're just getting into it, just every month or two, do some searches that in your local area on the different tools. Just search for various terms that people would be searching for if they were looking for your business to see how you show up. And making sure that you keep your website updated with blogs, service pages, and social posts. And the last thing I put in here was just start with something. I know that this presentation and the list is probably like there's a lot of information here, lots of things to do. But I would suggest just starting somewhere and kind of building off of that, just so that you kind of have a leg up on the competition. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do to your website. And in October, we're actually going to do a full hour-long webinar on just your website. But for now, we'll just kind of cover the basics and overview of each one of these, and then we'll dive more deep in that particular webinar. So the types of content that AI tools are tending to favor is very specific information. So I think a lot of businesses, and especially when ChatGPT first came out, they were like, "Oh, great! I can create content at scale. I can create a lot more content." I think what happened was that a lot of less than stellar content was created. Some people might call it fluff. Just content that isn't super sharp, not super detailed, just kind of doesn't really give a ton of details. And so when people are asking specific questions about, especially about the community association management industry, the websites that give more specific detailed information are performing better. Specifically if you have like checklists or templates on your site, frequently asked questions, tables, timelines, verifiable facts, anything that like really gets specific, those kinds of pages tend to perform better. Consistent name, address, and phone number and citations and certifications across all of your listings have been helpful. And then a strong website architecture. So having a page, many campsites just have like a services page or communities we serve page where it lists everything in a bulleted list, all the different types of communities they serve. Having a specific page for each type of community is really helpful, because then you're telling Google and you're telling AI search that we provide services to all these different types of communities, so they're condos, townhouses, gated communities. And then if a competitor just has it listed in a bulleted list and you have a full page dedicated to it, your site is much more likely to show up in that search result. So also having a page for each city or each area that you serve. So these are commonly referred to as service area pages. And and you wouldn't think it would matter, but these actually perform quite well because Google, they crawl your site, and AI search tools crawl your site, and we just need to tell them exactly what it is that you do and where you service people, like what's your service area. And when you have pages dedicated to an entire community or a county or an area, it makes it very obvious that that's what you do, and you're much more likely to show up in the in ChatGPT or any other AI search tool results. And then the last one is topic clusters. And so having clusters of information, whether it be, for example, you could do state laws. So if there are laws that are important to the board members of your communities, um, to have like a state law page, and it could be a blog or it could be a resource section, and then you would have an article on the first law, an article on the second law, third law, fourth law, have them all like in a section of your website. Um, and that it will help you show up when people are doing searches that are related to communities, HOAs in your particular state or in your area. If you have a full section of laws dedicated to your area. Your Google Business Profile, we talked a little bit about this already. Um, so it's one of the most trusted sources of data. And if you've tried to verify your Google Business Profile in the last year or two, you'll understand why it's a trusted source of data. They make it very difficult now for you to be able to actually bring a Google Business Profile live. There's a very high standard. Most of the time now, they're requiring a video verification. And so people have to literally shoot a video of their location and upload it to Google. And so Google Business Profiles are powering much of Google's AI as well. So AI mode and AI overviews, they get data from Google Business Profiles. So it's super important. And just in the last couple of weeks, ChatGPT users can now interact with Google Maps as well. With some of the management companies that I work with who have fully optimized Google Business Profiles, they can account for about 30% of their new business inquiries just from their Google Business Profile alone. So that one is super important. And 93% of local searches on Google show a Google Business Profile result right now. So, and here's an example of a Google Business Profile that's optimized. And so I have some screenshots here of what a customer would be able to see on the front end. And then I also have some items on the back end on the next screenshot. So just to kind of show, and this is just one that I picked that's not too far from me down in Chicago. So this one has a number of photos, a number of nice photos that make the profile stand out. They've got a huge number of reviews, 477, a 4.6 rating, which is exceptionally high for this industry. And about 3.5 is usually good for this industry, but anytime you can get above 4, it's phenomenal. They have a fully filled out address. They also have an appointment link, which takes them to a page on their website. So this is a profile that has had some effort put into it. And then one of the underutilized areas is the services section. And so this is what it looks like. This is on the back end. Now, services, if you're trying to check your business, the best way would be to log into your Google Business Profile, which is google.com/business. If you're trying to do some competitive research on one of your competitors, you cannot see what they've posted for their services on a desktop device. But if you search for them and their profile comes up on a mobile device, you will be able to see the services section, which tells you which services they've used. And so the larger writing there is the service itself. So for example, community association management is the service, and then the smaller font underneath it is the description. For people who haven't touched their profiles in a while, This is one of the most common areas that I see missing or underutilized. And it's super important to check it pretty regularly because Google will auto add things, and a lot of times they don't make sense. So, for example, if you're hiring for a position and you have it listed on your website, Google might add, HR company or something to your profile, and it doesn't make sense at all because it's not one of the services you provide. But Google likes to like guess at things, and so it's important to go through and weed through the the services and the descriptions to make sure that you are cleaning those up at least once every month or two. And reviews. So reviews are important for so many reasons, but one of the ways that ChatGPT and other search tools rank and provide results to users is by looking at trust and credibility. And that can be done through positive reviews. And so companies that have a larger number of reviews, companies that have a higher review rating, companies that have you know recent reviews are more likely to show up in the AI search tools. Um, Google Google AI and also ChatGPT and other search tools have actually taken some data from the review descriptions. Like when somebody leaves you a review, they'll take some of the information to make assumptions that your company provides certain services that are actually listed by one of your customers in the review, and so that is important as well. Um, the tools can tell whether the reviews, can tell like the nuances of what's being said about your company and what things you did well, what things maybe you needed work on. They do scan through all those to see how you handle each type of service that you're providing and what the customer felt about your service. And again, freshness. So just getting reviews on a regular basis is very helpful when it comes to freshness. Um, and just, I guess the last item here is that if two companies look similar, the AI search tools will often highlight the ones with the stronger reviews. And so that's something that you should just work into your regular routine, as reviews are super important for so many different aspects of your business. So in summary, it's important to do regular searches for the main tools to see if you're showing up, and if you are showing up, what it is that they're showing for your business. I would also recommend checking the sources for local searches to see, ask ChatGPT or the other search tools, you know, how did you get your results? What website should I be listed on to help show up in these results? And then try to get listed into any of those sites that you're not currently listed on. And again, the main focus areas are your website, your Google business profile, your reviews, and then just starting small and building upon progress. And then also, if this is something that you don't have anyone internally to handle for your team, you can consider partnering with a marketing company that's experienced in AI search. They definitely know what to do and can kind of cut out the learning curve and take care of things for you. And Big Rock Marketing, we're offering a free AI readiness analysis for your business. And so we will be able to give you a list of the things that you should be doing, and just take a look at what your current, how your website's looking, how your Google profile's looking, and just how you're looking overall online, and give you a list of things that you could work on. And Brianna just put the link in the chat so you can sign up for that at any time. And if anyone has any questions about this or needs any advice on how to handle AI for their company, I put my contact information on here as well. Over on where the chat is on the side there, there's also a handout tab. I did put a PDF version of this presentation on there. as well as you will be shortly after this call, you'll be getting a recording if you want to rewatch the webinar. And then also, if anybody else from your team would like to watch it, you can forward this to them and they'll be able to watch the recording as well. And I did want to mention that our next webinar is also an AI-focused webinar. This one, we're going to focus exclusively on your website. So it's AI search in your website, how CAM companies can get found in the next generation of search. So we're going to dive deeper into the different aspects of your website and how you can help improve your website presence to be able to show up higher in AI search. And the sign up is going to be put, Brianna just pasted that into the chat as well. So you can sign up for that as well. We'll talk about, what AI search tools are looking for in a website, how to structure your website pages so that they can be easily understood and recommended. And then we're going to put real examples of CAM-friendly content that show up in AI search results, and then some practical steps to make sure that your website's AI ready for this year as well. And so if you have any questions, please paste them into the search now, and then we will start answering them. And Brianna, do you have any questions at this time?
Yes, we do have a few questions. So let's see. The first question was, what tools do you recommend for tracking AI search results?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I have tested a number of tools, and there's none that I would recommend at this time for AI search. I would expect that to change very quickly. But so the kind of my problem with the tools that have come out so far is that you would have to know the exact search term to be able to determine whether or not you're showing up in the search. And so at this point, I wouldn't worry about spending money on tools until they improve a little bit. But I would recommend doing occasional searches on the tools. Just use the free version of the tools if you don't have the paid version, and just do the searches to see if your website is showing up in their results or not.
Okay. And another question someone had that I think is really important to address is, what happens if AI search replaces Google traffic? Will people still visit their website?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, so, well, at this point, I don't think Google's going anywhere. Um, there is been no indication that their platform is in danger anytime in the near future. But even if there's more and more opportunity where the search tools aren't actually sending traffic to your website, I will still think that your website will still be super important to generate the results that the AI search tools are providing. So your website is definitely going to be super, super important going forward, and probably even more important going forward. Now, there are some people predicting out there that in the future, there could be what is called like an agent, where basically a company would have an agent that could answer questions on their behalf. And so a consumer or a board member would have would use ChatGPT, and ChatGPT would be their agent, and they would go and they would have a bunch of questions like for a management company, and then the agent would go ask the management company's agent and get the answers for them. And so this is kind of like a futuristic concept, but there are people who are kind of like exploring this technology right now, so that things would be more based on your agent answering questions for you than somebody going to your website to get answers for you. That doesn't look like it's happening in the near future. So for now, I would still say super focused on your website. And if that shifts into something else, I'm sure that the data will have to be given to, like, if it would shift to like an agent focus, the data would have to be given, and whether that's through a website or some other way, at least for now, websites are still super important.
So things are kind of moving a little slower. It's in its beginning stages, but how fast is everything changing and how often should people adjust their strategies?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say I would stay super focused on AI. It's not going anywhere, and it's just the amount of money that's being poured into it is incredible. I'm attending webinars myself from experts in the industry and experts, AI experts, and they're basically saying that every couple of months the advice is switching. And so when I put together this presentation and when I do work for my clients, um, I focus on things that no matter what the latest and greatest best practices are, that they're just strong foundational elements that would never like not be of value. So, like making improvements to your website, adding FAQs, adding your website to profiles and directories, like that's never going to be, there's never going to be a downside to that. It can only help you. And so I don't chase fads, and I just focus on things that will improve your web presence both on your website and off. And so I would say keep a close eye on the industry to see what else is out there. Definitely don't want to miss anything new, but just focusing on the core concepts will be important now and into the future.
You listed a lot of really good suggestions there. If you were to talk to everyone attending this webinar today and give them one item that would give the biggest impact, what would you recommend?
Yeah, good question. The biggest impact today is making sure your Google business profile is fully optimized. We know that Google uses that for both their AI and their traditional search. And so that they still have 95% of the searches. I would invest heavily in making sure your Google business profile is fully optimized and updated on a regular basis.
Okay. And the last question someone shared with us is how can they tell what their competitors are doing to show up in AI search results?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess the best way to do that is to, when you do a search on an AI search tool, you can ask the tool. So, like for example, ChatGPT, if you go and do a search and you say like, who are the best, HOA management companies in my area, and they give a list, and you could say, why did you choose, ABC management, and then see what the answer is, and then just say like, how did you evaluate, like what makes them show up first. Just like you may, so sometimes for as smart as these tools are, sometimes you have to like rephrase the question or ask it, a little bit differently to get the right answer. But they'll usually tell you as to why they've chosen certain competitors, um, and what they're doing you know, to show up higher in the results. And so that's actually really the best way to do it, is to ask the tool why they chose that particular competitor, and that will help you, make those changes to your website, or if it's a directory or something, or a different source, you'll have the answer because the tool will tell you how they chose, the companies that they chose.
Okay, thank you so much. That was the last that I had. Does anyone else have questions? If so, feel free to place them in the chat.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. And if anyone has any, if anyone would like to have their AI readiness analysis, please feel free to click on the Calendly link. I will do a one-on-one analysis for your business, and I will review everything prior to our call, and then I will give you some tips and tricks on how you can improve your AI readiness. Also, if you'd like to sign up for the next webinar, the link is in the chat. I'd like to thank everyone so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate you coming. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you again for your time.